Hey guys, how you guys doing? Welcome to Apple Weekly number 49. This show really should be called Apple Monthly 49 since I've not done one in the past 4 weeks. But you guys know I was away to get this bad boy sorted, and now that it's here I'm back in business per se. This is of course a show, for those of you who don't know, where I cover everything Apple. I'm going to be going over some of the stories this previous week and some from the previous weeks that I missed and kind of collate them in this kind of episode. Before I get started, of course, I'd like to thank parcelmonkey.com. Great courier guides if you're sending a parcel, Christmas present, whatever. They've got really good rates, and the best thing is they use reputable couriers like UPS, CityLink, FedEx and so on at really discounted rates. And of course, how can I not mention iGear.com, one jacket, tons of pockets, iPad, Macbook AIR, HTC, Blackberry, the full shebang, friendly. First story of this week is Siri. Hey, almost forgot about Siri, eh? I'm more looking forward to the actual update which they bring in Q1 of next year. As we all know, Siri is still in beta, meaning, you know, it doesn't recognise all of the accents properly. It's not available everywhere, and some of the features don't work here in the UK, whereas they work in the United States. But nevertheless, this story relates to Best Buy, which is of course a retailer in the United States. So if you're searching for a television, a computer, it will give you the actual catalogue. So you just say television and it'll bring up all the prices of the TVs, and it's it's just a way of enhancing the experience, making it easier so you don't have to physically tire your fingers in typing into a keyboard or the iPhone screen itself. Moving on to the second story, which is in relation to Steve Jobs' biography, which by the way has been the bestseller of 2011. It's topped the charts, it's sold records on Amazon itself, and you know, it was a great read. You know, some have criticised it, but I think Walter done a good job, and he was interviewed recently. And he said he is thinking of extending the biography. Some of the interviews he didn't share for whatever reason. Could be one of those business making or money making things where, you know, he just wants you to buy more and more. But he has said he is thinking about extending it. Of course, he can't change the end or the conclusion part of things, but he can share more interviews. Also, we've got the Steve Jobs movie to look forward to, which I am really excited about over the actual text or the book itself. In my opinion, you know, the Facebook movie, The Social Network, was an amazing film, and Sony is producing, you know, the Steve Jobs film as well, and I can't wait till that comes out. So hopefully that will come out next year as well. There's no fixed date as to when the extended book is going to be available. Walter, the guy who wrote it, has just kind of indicated he may or may not release it, which basically means he will come next year once everyone's bought this book. Next story is pretty entertaining. Muggers in the United States, they specifically want your iPhone. They'll come up to you if you produce a Blackberry or an Android. They'll just hand it right back to you. They're just looking for iDevices, iMagic, iGold. There's been a number of cases where people have produced other non-iPhones and they said, keep it son, we don't need your crap device. And again, if you put an Android device, because there's so many, you've got the low end ones and the high end ones, the thieves probably don't know the market value of each Android phone in their head and can't just Google it up at the time they're robbing someone. So they just refuse it outright, and they just want an iPhone because everyone knows there's only a certain amount of iPhones and they hold their value. They're kind of, you know, top selling phones, and you know, there's good return on it. So the point of the story is keep a secondary shitty phone in your pocket. Better yet, keep it in your iGear jacket, and you'll be safe and you can thank me later. Moving on to the iPad 3, which is going to be of course released next year. There's been some reports as to what we can expect. Of course, a high resolution display is what I personally want and what I kind of expected from the iPad 2, but you know, nevertheless, A6 processor, beefier graphics. It's reported to be a bit thicker as well, which I'm not really happy about. There's been some, you know, leaks in terms of the microphones and so on, as you can see on your screen. But here's the thing, instead of kind of talking about it, what would you guys like to see in the iPad 3? I think it's a given, you know, as we progress through the next few years, there's not going to be one version, but there could possibly be more than one. And, you know, kind of going on to the next story after that, reportedly there's going to be a 7-inch version, specifically 7.85. And as we all know, Steve Jobs
kind of dissed the rumour that, you know, there's going to be a 7-inch iPad. It just wasn't physically possible. It's not something Apple were interested of. But we all know Apple are kind of like that. They say one thing a few months back, but then they kind of turn their word and say, hey, look, we produced a 7-inch version. And they're doing that supposedly because the Kindle Fire is selling pretty well. And I must say, I've seen personally quite a lot of people using Kindle devices on trains and planes, and although I've never, you know, used a 7-inch device, I can kind of see why, and just purely because of reading. It probably will be less in features as to, you know, a less beefier graphics card. So it's going to be like an iPad Lite and an iPad Pro, whereas the iPad 3 is going to be seen as the high-end, the expensive stuff, whereas the 7-inch version you're going to be, you know, only kind of some things like reading, web browsing, and I think that's where this 2 iPad versions are going to come into play next year. And kind of staying on the devices, the iPhone is going to get supposedly an aluminium back, which, judging from this picture, looks absolutely gorgeous, doesn't it? And it's going to have a bigger screen. It's going to have a 4-inch display. Of course, it's probably still going to have the high resolution display, better processor, better graphics, and it's most probably going to be named the iPhone 5. If it's going to be named the 4S2 or the 4SS something or the 4S.02, people are going to be annoyed. And last but not least, a story that I've kind of been waiting for a while, the MacBook Pros. It's been 4 years since they've been using the aluminium kind of enclosures. Late 2008 is when they introduced them, and you know, we were expecting new MacBook Pros early this year, and we did get new ones, but the general external or the exterior was the same. And it's rumoured that the next one, and it kind of makes sense, kind of 3 to 4 years on, they're going to change the look of the MacBooks, especially when the MacBook Airs were launched last year, and Steve Jobs said, you know, this is a feature of all notebook computers in terms of lightweight but yet powerful. And there's been reports by Digitime saying we'll be seeing MacBook AIR refreshes early next year. Not too sure how credible this is. You know, Digitimes are known for sometimes getting it right, sometimes getting it wrong. I don't think there's going to be a MacBook Air refresh in the first quarter of next year. I think it's too early to have a refresh since they just got bumped. But the introduction of the 15-inch MacBook Airs is definitely, you know, plausible. I would love to have a 15-inch MacBook Air with, of course, SSD, a bigger SSD than what you find in the 11 and 13 inches, better graphics card, better battery life. You know, the Pro versions, or the Pro range is known for beefier stuff, right? So you've got better battery life, better CPU, more RAM, the ability to add RAM to the 15 and 17 inch would be definitely very nice, and I think, you know, they are definitely going to look at that to kind of distinguish the low-end models from the high-end ones as they do now, and get rid of the 13-inch MacBook Pro, because the 13-inch AR kind of, you know, people are asking me questions on a regular basis, you know, I'm going to get a MacBook Pro, should I get a 13-inch MacBook Pro or a 13-inch AR? And I'm recommending the AR for, you know, a number of reasons. Better screen, SSD and so on. Yes, you can do the same eventually from a 13-inch MacBook Pro, but it's going to cost you, so why not just get the MacBook Air? You know, there's been various tests done between both of them, and the Air isn't too far off from the Pro, so it just makes sense to have, you know, the Air, especially it's the latest machine to be refreshed. So in terms of the interiors of the 15-inch MacBook Air, it's just going to be the new Ivy Bridge chipset, which consumes less power, but, you know, still giving you the juice, more power, better GPU, and of course, well, I say of course, I hope we're going to see some real Thunderbolt devices, because remember, February is when this whole Thunderbolt stuff kicked off when the MacBook Pros were released, and almost 10 months on we have absolutely jack. So hopefully come 2 months later we should, or whenever the next generation MacBook Pros, codenamed AR, are released, we'll see much more Thunderbolt devices on the market. And of course we're going to see standard SSD or standard flash storage, as we do find in these MacBook Airs here. Thank God, you know, you don't have to spend much more money. And probably one of the best things, or the things I wanted, a better display. Now I know you can customize it, note the word customize, and you do have to pay a premium for the type of screen that you want, isn't that crazy? But I just want a matte one. There's reports that there's going to be a Retina display on it, great with a resolution of 2880 by 1800. I don't mind having a Retina display on a notebook kind of machine. I just want anything, give me anything apart from a friggin' mirror, i.e. the glossy screens, which is standard on the MacBook Pro. The screens on the MacBook Airs, I've said this many times and you're probably already sick of me saying this, are gorgeous on the Airs, but the Pros are horrible, including the iMacs. But I guess you just kind of get used to it. But going from the MacBook Air to an iMac, you friggin' can realise how big of a difference it is. It's just much more nicer and friendlier to the eyes. You just want to make sweet love to this screen here. Guys, as you can see, I'm getting a bit carried away. I hope you like this episode. If you can leave a rating, your thoughts, your comments, you know, of the stories I've mentioned in here. What do you want from the next MacBook Pro? Are you getting a Pro for Christmas and going to stick it on eBay or Gumtree? Or, you know, what are you doing? Have you just bought it and got a MacBook Pro knowing there is going to be a refresh? Most probably early next year, because there's going to be a 12-month kind of refresh cycle come March, April-ish. So what are you doing? Any of other stories, leave a comment below and I'll see you guys in the next episode next week. Cheers guys! Oh, and before I go, remember you can follow me on twitter.com/i6glaswegian, facebook.com/iGlaswegian. Links are on the screen and on the description. Looking to send a package at the lowest price possible? Simple. Visit parcelmonkey.co.uk, follow these 4 simple steps, have the package collected from your doorstep, and then sit back and relax.